accomplish what I set out to accomplish
Yeah.
in 2025. And I think some persons may be met with a situation where they didn't accomplish it. And
Yeah.
for reasons that may be beyond their control. And I think coming on to the end of the year, a lot of people may feel well, I guess certain people may feel a sense of disappointment or discouragement or, just feeling like time is going by so quickly and I'm not
Yeah.
accomplishing what I want to accomplish,
Yeah.
and I think it's especially true for people our age where society puts expectations on persons. You need to be at a particular point in your life when you reach a particular age.
Yeah.
You need to get married by a certain age, have children by a certain age. You need to graduate university and have a job and have your own house at a certain age. So that's really where my agreement for this topic came about with
Yeah.
faith and waiting on God. So
Yeah.
if we just want to get right into the discussion, I want to ask you, what does waiting on God look like for you right now in your current season of life?
Yeah. Love that question, actually. Well, I am juggling some hats. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
at this point I'm in the corporate world and I'm also in the academic world and
Right.
trying to balance showing up as an employee and also showing up as a student.
Right.
Um, also being a daughter,
Mm-hmm.
having responsibilities, even at home and planning certain things out, and be kind of being on top of my game. So I think in this season of my life, waiting on God would look like allowing him as well to show up in every area of my life and give me the strength to kind of move forward. Right now I think I'm in a position even in the corporate setting where I'm seeing certain things happening and I'm like, God, I need your intervention. I need you to show me exactly if this is where you want me to be for this
Mm-hmm.
season. You brought the job, you brought the career path, the degree program, would have given me the
Mm-hmm.
um go ahead to pursue those things. What exactly do you want me to gain from this? I mean, because the trials and tribulations come in. It's like,
Right.
God, what exactly is the lesson here? And is it time for me to leave?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think in this season of my life, waiting on God would look like um really understanding and knowing his voice and not running ahead of him and being
Right.
patient. Even in the
Right.
midst of the trials and the tribulations, because it's like, Lord, on one hand, I don't want you to embarrass me, but on the other hand, I can't deal with this any longer. It's becoming
Right.
a bit too much for me to bear. So I think right now, in this season of my life, that's what waiting on God would look like for me. Yeah.
Right. Right.
And
And
as go
go ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
As I mentioned, even waiting, on God, and even in that aspect, I know you would have your personal experience with waiting on
Mm-hmm.
God. And with that, even with my story, I want to kind of ask you now, which biblical story or even woman in the
Mm-hmm.
Bible, because we are young women trying to make
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
um, would you say encourages you in difficult times when you even waiting on God?
Yeah, listen to you answer the question and I talk about waiting on God. And so many times it's like we as humans just trying to, sometimes we may not be aware what God's timeline is. Yeah.
That's it.
And we have our own timeline. And so it's like you're trying to align your timeline with God's timeline. Be like, yeah, Lord,
Yeah.
I'm waiting on you, but it seems like you're taking kind of long. I'm not really sure what to do. In a kind of a gray area here. And I'm just looking for
Yeah.
some sort of sign, whether to move, whether to stay, or what to do,
Yeah.
you know. And I mentioned earlier about, wanting to achieve certain things within a certain time period of your life.
Yeah.
And so waiting for God now for me is more or less, well, I recently got married.
Yeah.
And when that happens, a lot of persons, the first question they ask is, okay, well, children next. And when you're going to have children and whatever and
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mind you, only been married for like a little over 3 months. But that's the questions that you get asked from persons generally. And well, right
Yeah.
now I'm also renting. And so that's the next
Yeah.
question, depending on where you came from. Renting is like condemned. Like, why are you doing
Yeah.
that? Like, you should have your own home. Like, even though I'm like,
Yeah.
now starting to work, I should have my own home
Yeah.
somehow. So if anybody's out there have a house and they want to give it to me, I will take it. But yeah, so wanting all these things to happen, and it's like you're supposed to have your own home when you get married, and you're supposed to have this, and you're supposed to be in this
Yeah.
spot, and it's like, well, and I think we'll talk about it later. Everybody's life looks
Yeah.
different. Everybody's
Does
situation
it?
is different. And there's
Yeah.
not any one correct way to go about things. Your plan, or rather God's plan for you, is not God's plan for me necessarily.
Exactly. Yeah.
And speaking about that, there's so many examples in the Bible. Coming back to the question you would have asked about when you wait, which Bible
Yeah.
story or women in the Bible encourage you. And there are so many examples of
Yeah.
people in the Bible. The first one that came to mind was Hannah. Hannah wanted a
Yeah.
child so badly, and she prayed and she cried out, and she was like, Lord, give me this child. And I think that's something a lot of viewers can relate to, where you want something so bad,
Yeah.
whether it's a child like Hannah, or whether it's a husband or a wife, or you want to graduate, or you want to just get out of the
Yeah.
situation you're currently in. And you prayed and you're asking God, and it's like, you're not really sure what God waiting on, or if you should try to do something in your own power, or
Yes.
what it is. And that's one story. And Hannah really prayed, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
That's important, where you need to have
Yeah.
that conversation and that connection with God,
Yeah.
praying. And and sometimes I think we as humans, we want an answer to the
Yeah.
waiting. Like, Lord,
Yeah.
I want this to happen now. And if it's not happening now, that's all well and good. But can I get a explanation as to why not now?
Yeah.
Because now
Yeah.
seems, from my human perspective, now seems like the right time for this to happen.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm not trusting you, God, but I just want to understand. Like, why not
Understand.
now? And
Mm-hmm.
I think for me at least, an answer came to that question when I looked at the story of Lazarus's death in the Bible. And I think
Yeah.
about when Jesus loved Lazarus, he loved Mary and Martha,
Yeah.
and the news came to Jesus about Lazarus's death. And the Bible
Yeah.
puts it so profoundly. It says Jesus loved Lazarus so much that he decided to stay where he was. And I thought that's
Right.
kind of,
Yeah.
but to anybody now reading the story for the first time, it sounds like an oxymoron. Like,
Yeah.
you love this guy, this man, and he is sick to the point of death, and you loved him so much that you decided to stay where you are.
Yeah.
And if that was me in the story, I'd be like, okay, well, I loved him so much that I decided to go and see him, or go
Yeah.
and visit him, or go and do
Yeah.
something about it. But
Yeah.
Jesus, understanding the importance of time,
Yeah.
and the explanation for Jesus waiting that time period before he actually went to Lazarus is so God could be glorified. And I
Yes.
think many times God sets up a situation to prove himself, yes, to other people watching, but also
Yeah.
to you yourself. Because
Yeah.
I think as Christians, we often need our faith to increase and to grow. And so
Yeah.
sometimes God puts us in situations that seems impossible, so we could be assured at the end of the day that this was not me. This
Say
had to
it.
be God. This
Mm-hmm.
had to be God.
Yeah.
And I now I'm at a point in my life where I get excited when that happens.
Yeah.
So earlier this year, I got diagnosed, and I think I spoke about this already. I diagnosed
Yeah.
with a eye disease that was incurable. And I was
Yeah.
like, that has to be God, because God wants to show others who I
Yeah.
testify to, that this had to be him healing me from it.
Yes.
And right now I'm still in a period of waiting to be healed from it, but I'm trusting,
Yeah.
his plan and his timing is always right. So that always gets me excited when I'm placed in an impossible situation, because I know that God he just wants to show off a little bit, and that's quite all right with me.
He comes
But
through. Exactly.
yes,
Right on
he
time.
always does. And what about you? Do you have any Bible stories or women in scripture that encourages you when you're waiting?
I think about the story of Esther. I think
Mm.
Esther is my MVP. Her story is typically one that kind of shows me that God comes through, in
Mm.
the rubble, in the trial, in the
Mm.
tribulation. Esther, for me, she kind of depicted what waiting and grace looked like. And she
Mm.
also highlighted the importance for me of prayer and fasting. The importance of even getting mentorship. I'm speaking to persons who are in, whose spiritual lives are, you would say, flourishing.
Right.
Whether it may be in the church, whether it may be friends who you could lean on as a shoulder to cry and they could give you some level of guidance. Because Mordecai was essentially that for her, you'll go and pray.
Hmm. Yeah.
Sackcloth and ashes, pray. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I get so caught up sometimes in my day-to-day life and in the
Yeah.
problems and ruminating on the issues and the stresses of life and the vicissitudes of
Hmm.
life. And having those friends to tap into, having, support even in church to tap into, to say, pray, ask the Lord for guidance. That's so important. And
Hmm.
I think Esther is one for me that she just strikes that nerve for me in the sense of even when I guess, mountain seems insurmountable, God is able. he's
Right.
able to give you strategy to overcome. And he
Mm-hmm.
also that even in that story also shows me with faith and waiting, sometimes we're waiting on things, sometimes even in the waiting, we're being persecuted. I
Right.
have a personal experience now where I'm going through a level of persecution and I'm like, God,
Mm.
what is happening? I'm doing
Yeah.
your will, I'm following your word, I'm trying to be the Christian that you asked me to be, and then it's coming left, right, and center. I feel like I can't take it anymore. But I even
Right.
remember what happened with Haman in that story, where
Mm-hmm.
the trap that he set up for
The Jews, yeah,
Mordecai, he
Esther, yeah.
fell in it himself,
Right.
so that even shows me with faith and wisdom as well. You're not wishing for anybody's demise, but vengeance is mine, says the Lord, and I will surely repay.
Right.
God is able, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
waiting on him and being obedient, even when it's difficult, showing up. Because I feel like
Right.
sometimes I tend to, even in waiting, I tend to run.
Mm-hmm.
And I think God realizes, Akila, it's time to stand up and, use the sword of the spirit. The sword, just pray. You have a
Yeah.
weapon here, which is pray, and
Mm-hmm.
utilize prayer and not allow the enemy to defeat you. Because, you can't stand up and
Right.
cry when you're going through warfare. Like crying isn't going to do
Right.
anything. You need to pray. We have armor, you have to put on that armor for a reason. So I think,
Right.
in my experience, Esther is that sense of encouragement for me, even when it gets difficult. I remember her story because she was so afraid to approach a king. And she
Mm-hmm.
prayed, God gave her strategy and then she got favor
Right.
with him.
Mm-hmm.
So Esther is my MVP. And to move on from Esther, as you would have mentioned Hannah. I would have mentioned Esther, Hannah's waiting
Mm-hmm.
period, even that the anointing, even her son as well. And then Esther in her experience, teaching us how to pray. How do you think you remain faithful even when God's timing doesn't align with your expectations, with marriage,
Yeah.
with, housing,
Mm-hmm.
with, career path? How do you remain faithful?
Yeah. And that I think happens to every Christian at every point in time. And coming back to what you were saying about the persecution, I
Yeah,
think that so many times is when you feel like you're doing everything right, supposedly. Like,
yeah,
Lord, I'm praying, I'm going to church, I'm serving you, I have church offices, I'm witnessing, I'm evangelizing, I'm doing everything I possibly can,
yeah,
and it's like things just not working out for me. And I
yeah.
think that's a mistake we make of trying to like bargain with God. Like, Lord,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm doing X, Y, and Z, you should be doing A, B, C.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think that's a mistake that we make. God, and I think, yes, certain promises that
yeah,
God made to us are conditional. It's like, well,
yeah,
if you, obey and hearken unto my voice, then, it's like that verse that says,
yeah.
if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and
Get
heal
from
their land.
heaven.
So that's a conditional
Yeah,
promise. And some of them are, certainly conditional. But I think
yeah.
it's a mistake to get to a point where God is supposed to do this for me because
Yes.
I'm doing this for him.
Yeah,
you know and it's like that's not really how God works. Then you're doing
yeah,
it like a kind of an exchange, a contract, more or less.
yeah,
And I think waiting on God's time. And for me, how do I remain faithful? Because I think many times, if not most times, God's timing does not match up with my timing.
yeah,
And what helps me to remain faithful is just to kind of remember who I am and who God
yeah,
is.
yeah,
Some people might say I am smart. Some people might say I am, wise and all these different kinds of things. And I just remember my
yeah,
place in comparison to God's place. And it's
yeah,
like, the word of God says his ways are higher than my
yeah,
ways and his thoughts are higher than my
yeah,
thoughts. And
yeah,
so as much as I feel like I might know what's best for me, after all, it's my life.
yeah,
Nobody knows my life better than me. And it's like, wait, actually somebody
yeah,
does. God
yeah,
does. God, he knows the end from the beginning. He created us. He set our life in
yeah,
motion, and he is ultimately in control. And something that also helps me is
yeah,
the saying that when Pastor Sampson pastored at our church, he used to always say this, that God is a God who is loving enough
yeah,
to want what is best for us. And he is
yeah,
wise enough to know what is best for us. And he is powerful enough to do what is best for
yeah,
us. And
yeah,
so when you're going through periods of waiting, and it's like your expectations just not being met, you feel like God is not moving,
yeah.
you just remind yourself that I serve a God who loves me. And I
Mm-hmm.
think something that helps with that is like you have good plans for yourself, but it
Yeah,
could never ever compare to the plans that God has for you.
God has,
And
exactly.
it
Yeah,
takes a certain amount of faith and trust to just be like, okay, my plan seems great to me. I can't imagine anything better than that. But I have to
yeah,
trust that God's plan is better. God's
yeah,
timing is better.
Yeah.
God sees everything. He's aware of situations and factors that I'm not aware
Yeah.
of. And
Yeah.
so I need to trust that God, seeing the unseen to me and knowing the
Yeah.
unknown to me, is working things out for my good, which is what
Oh
he
my God.
promised.
Yeah.
That's what he promised. And so that really helps me. So I guess, based on everything I
Yeah.
would have said, when I'm waiting, is the word of God that really keeps
The
me.
word of God.
The
Yeah.
word of God, just reminding yourself about who God is. God reveals himself
Yeah.
to us through his word, and just understanding the kind of God that you serve. And
Yes.
understanding that, he just wants what is best for you. And,
That's what
well, that's it for me. And so I want to ask you, Akila, um, you mentioned a lot about prayer earlier on.
Yeah.
And do you think that prayer is something, and what else in addition to prayer, do you think helps you when you are waiting on God's timing, or
Yeah.
when you're trying to stay grounded while waiting?
Yeah. Prayer is, pivotal importance. I
Mm-hmm.
have I cry my eyeballs out most times
Mm-hmm.
in that prayer closet. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
Lord, I need answers. I need you to give
Mm,
me strategy, direction. Because I mean, it's not that I'm stubborn in my own way, because I feel like I pray, there's a cap prayer that I pray. And the cap is, Lord, anything that I do that or anything that I want that is not your will for
mhm.
me and you're seeing it's
Right.
to my demise, block it. No matter how much I
Mm-hmm.
want to go after, block that thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the cap is there because I know myself. Sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
being a human, sometimes you running after things and not
Mm,
understanding, okay, the Lord doesn't want this for you. But because you
right.
so want that thing, you're running and you just your mouth watering to get this thing, and God is like, no. So
Yeah,
the
yeah.
cap is, Lord, I know me enough to know how I get carried away. Just block that thing. Just for my good. I know you,
Right.
you're wise enough to make sure you wouldn't give
Yeah.
me anything that is not your best.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I may want things that is scraps, not even understanding in the time, in the
Right.
season that is scraps. But he
Mm-hmm.
sees further than I could see, as you rightfully seen. So prayer is pivotal, it's important. Reading, scriptures to reaffirm what God has said in his word is important. So his word is life. The book of
Mm-hmm.
Psalms as well as life. You need those
Mm-hmm.
prayers. David prayed
Yeah.
those prayers like, God help me here, not hearing my prayer, what is
Yeah.
going on? Another thing I think for me is, and I would always say this, I got this from one, of the pastors I used to listen to, Pastor Flowers, and he rightfully said, when God is um, when God is blessing your neighbor, that means he's in the neighborhood. So your blessing is on the way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So another thing that keeps me encouraged is listening to testimonies of God's
Right.
goodness.
Mm-hmm.
God wouldn't leave me hanging. The listening to testimonies is not to envy what the Lord would have done for somebody
Right.
else, but it's to give me hope to know that my blessing is on the way. I just have to
Right.
wait a little longer. And I think
Mm-hmm.
also is asking the Lord to give me that patience that I need in the waiting season, in that period where I'm waiting. And I think for me, I'm a control freak.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that stems from sometimes having a lack of faith, wanting to know
Right.
how things are going to play out. So I just ask God, as I go through the process, to give me, I just can't be left hanging.
Mm-hmm.
So Lord, okay, I applied for a job. I want you to let them get back to me and say your
Mm-hmm.
application has been denied.
Right.
I don't like to be sitting not knowing what is
Right.
going on. I like answers for things. So if even and the answer is no, I want to know that. I
Mm-hmm.
want, if you just no, I want you to tell me that and give me
Mm-hmm.
and when I know it's no and it's from God, I know it's right. Even though it's hard sometimes to get that rejection and get that no, or get that
Mm-hmm.
yes, or get the you're waiting and you don't know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to run ahead, and I feel like for me as well, to even praying and asking the Lord for wisdom and guidance, I don't like to be doing things that God's hand is not on.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I think I've been through situations in my life where I've seen how difficult it is even being with God in the picture,
Mm-hmm.
God in the midst.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine not having God there and I'm trying to do this
Right.
thing on my own. I'm being fought down and things are going wrong. How am I going to survive if I can't pray? If I don't
Right.
have
Yeah.
prayer, how am I going to survive? I can't understand. I can't survive without
Mm-hmm.
prayer. I just can't.
Right.
Sometimes when you encounter giants like, David and Goliath, I mean, David did with Goliath,
Yeah.
they're so big, and sometimes it's a spiritual force. There's a spirit behind
Right.
this person. How are you going to fight that as a carnal man? You
Mm-hmm.
cannot. That's where prayer
Mm-hmm.
comes in. So for me, prayer, speaking to wise counsel sometimes as well too. talking to people helps me. Not just anybody, yeah, not just talking to people,
Yeah,
just talking
of
to
course, yeah.
talking to wise counsel, talking to persons who I would say are grounded and rooted in Christ. I have a few mentors in the church as well who help me see things from a different perspective. Because sometimes you're going through
Right.
things and then you don't really understand the spiritual warfare. So even
Mm-hmm.
talking and
Mm-hmm.
getting a second opinion for them to kind of give me strategies of how to fight it is really a tool that helps me maneuver and kind of glide through the process a bit easier.
Right.
As I mentioned that too with spiritual warfare and fasting, and journaling. And oh yes, I used to have a prayer journal at one point in time. I still have it. Where I record the things that God would have done for me in the past and what he continues
Mm-hmm.
to do. And then I sometimes reflect on that and see where, okay, he brought me out of the situation before something similar. Um, he'll figure it out. I always tell
Right.
him, especially when he gets me into things, Lord, you figure this out. I'm not stressing
Mm-hmm.
myself on this. You have to figure this out because I didn't
Yeah.
bring myself here. You did. So let me
Mm-hmm.
not stress myself out because you have to take control anyway. So
Yeah.
I can't get
Mm-hmm.
gray hair on things which, you know,
Definitely.
doesn't really make
Definitely.
sense to get grayed on. Right?
Yeah.
So I think journaling, praying, speaking to wise counsel, also sermons, binge watching sermons is important sometimes
Mm-hmm.
when I'm going through things and even when I feel sort of left out, when feel as though God isn't
Mm-hmm.
listening to me.
Right.
Videos will pop up on my YouTube channel of Christian content creators that I look at, and it will be a word in due season. So he knows how to reach
Right.
me. And
Mm-hmm.
those things sort of, reach me as well too. So,
Mm-hmm.
as we, as we go into the advertisement part of the session,
Right.
we'll just take a little pause here and we'll come back. When we come back, we'll, discuss a bit further.
That's definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Every thread holds a memory, every color a promise. At Baker's Flags and Emblems, we understand what these symbols mean. We craft each piece to carry the weight of our history, the brilliance of our future. From the spirit that forged us to the vibrant tapestry we are today, our flag witnesses it all. Carry our story proudly. Choose Baker's Flags and Emblems. Visit us today.
JD Furniture Store, we believe the things you choose for your home should last your family years to come. Whether it's a cozy furniture for your bedroom, living room, or kitchen appliances, we've got it all. Obsess over your home's comfort, and we'll obsess to ensure it's affordable with zero-down options and home by you in no time. Visit JD Furniture, showroom in Arima, or www.jdfurniturestore.com to buy and apply today. Open weekdays only. Call or WhatsApp 219-3000 today.
For 62 years, the Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventists has been writing stories of recovery, resilience, and renewal. Here, healing isn't just about medicine. It is about finding peace in a comfortable environment, strength in our state-of-the-art facilities, and hope in every interaction. At the Community Hospital, we are more than your healthcare providers. We are your neighbors, your friends, your family in healing. Your journey to wellness begins with a single call. Let's write your story of healing together.
For all your healthcare needs, give us a call at 622-1191 or visit our website, thecommunityhospital.org.
As we
and make an
continue,
appointment today.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventists, where good private health care is affordable.
yes, we're back. As we continue with our program, a question that came to mind, Candace, is,
Mm-hmm.
that I have for you is, I remember, I know this story with Abraham and Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
God said, I promise to give you a son, you'll be a father of many nations. And, they were all, Lord, when are you coming? So she
Right.
decided to take things into her own hands and
Yeah.
help the Lord. God, I have to help you here because this is your will, even though she got into
Yeah.
issues thereafter, right?
Right.
So
Right.
how do you, in your personal experience, deal with feelings of doubt, frustration, or even comparison during that prolonged waiting period? Because sometimes it's
Yeah.
not today and today the problem happens and tomorrow God gives an answer.
Exactly.
How do
Exactly.
you, yeah.
Yeah, so one thing to note about me is I get frustrated easily. Really and truly, I do. And my husband can testify about that because so many times will be trying to go, so for instance, if we're trying to go somewhere we've never been before, we follow any maps and there's a lot of traffic and I see time coming near to the time we're supposed to meet there, if it's an appointment or something, I would just get frustrated. I just get frustrated when just timing is not working out. Because I'm a person, I like to be on time. So when things are not working out according to timing, I get frustrated. And so you could see how that could easily translate to waiting on God as well. Feeling frustrated. Again, that kind of springs from, I think, similar to you wanting to control things, wanting things to happen at a particular time, and having expectations and wanting to meet expectations, whether those expectations are your own, your parents' expectations, society, the church expectations. It's like you don't want to, at least for me, you don't want to disappoint people, you don't want to let people down, you want certain things to happen. And it's like, well, if I had my way, it would happen, but I am out of control here. And, God is the one in control. And for some reason, he's not seeing it fit for this to happen now. And, so how do I deal with that doubt and that frustration? I think for me, very similar to what you would have said in terms of the journaling, is to kind of just sit down and think back, okay, this is not the first time I've been in a situation like this. Maybe the circumstance is unique, but the general situation of having to wait on something is probably not the first time that's happened to you. You're waiting on God to do something. And so what helps me during that doubt is just to remember how God has led me in the past. And just to sit and remember, okay, Candace, you remember when you informed 6 and you're waiting on this to happen, and it did happen. You remember when you just graduated law school and you're waiting on this to happen, and it did happen. It didn't happen in the timing you wanted it to happen, but it came out in such a way that it was better than if it was the timing you wanted, and I think, so many times we think we know best, and we think, things make so much sense, but it's just trusting that, God is faithful. He has always been faithful. And if maybe it is your first time being in a situation, for those who may be young and listening, it maybe is your first time having to wait on God. And you would have mentioned it before, the counsel of those around you as well. Yes, the Bible, but if you want to talk to somebody face to face, I'm sure your parents, your siblings, somebody in the church, somebody has a first-hand testimony, a first-hand experience of, I wanted this to happen. God said, no, not right now. I waited, and it turned out even better than I could have ever imagined. And so that reminder to yourself about, God, he came through in the past. If he did it before, he could do it again. That's for the doubt and the frustration for me. And I think with the comparison is tricky, because especially persons within our age group, it's very difficult to not compare yourself to other people. It's very difficult because you consider yourself, okay, even with siblings, we are close in age. We consider ourselves, you're from the same household, grew up in the same community, maybe went to the same school, whatever the case might be, and we are in 2 different points in our life. And it's like, how come this person, graduated, is married, they, have all these things going for them, and I'm still here in my parents' house, unemployed, out of school, whatever the case might be. And it's like, you can't help but compare yourself. And coming back to what I said earlier, what helps me with that is just remembering that God's plan for you is not God's plan for me, and what success looks like for you, or what happiness looks like for you, may not be what it looks like for me. And so sometimes, we compare ourselves to other people, and I think at the end of the day, we just want that level of happiness and success, but everybody has a different definition, because God is all wise, and he probably knows if you were in that situation of being married and whatever, you might not necessarily be happy, And so I think what helps is you understanding for yourself, forget everybody else, but understanding for yourself, what would success look like for me? What would joy look like for me? And it doesn't have to subscribe to society's expectations of what that should look like. And I think God is so wise sometimes in not giving us what we want, because he knows that that's just going to make things worse. That's just going to ruin things for you, and it's going to ruin things for you and him in that relationship, and that's another thing that I've learned is, like, you could want something, how bad? God is sometimes too loving to give you what you want, because he knows that will just lead to your downfall, and it's like, God is like, as much as I want to do what you want me to do, is like, I would rather save you. I care first and foremost about your salvation. If I know I'm going to give you this thing, I know if I give you this husband you're asking for, if I give you this job you're asking for, if I allow you to do certain things and create ways for you that you're asking me to do, you will end up in a situation where things might seem hopeless. And, I don't want you to be in that situation. And, you could relate it in terms of your parents. Sometimes your parents tell you no. Sometimes your parents, do certain things. They prevent you from lining with certain people, going certain places, and it's like, well, why? And it's like they see the long term, they see the long run of like, friends, they'll take you and not bring you back. And it's like God understands that if He gives you what you're asking for, that's just bad news for everybody. And that's just, you think, you could handle it. You think it's not going to negatively affect me that much. You can't really see the negatives sometimes at all. And it's like really just trusting God that, and I think you would have mentioned it as well, God knows you better than you know yourself. And it's like God knows, if I really do this, you're not gonna like it. You're not gonna like me, and you might turn around. And this is so funny to me. Sometimes God does give us what we're asking for. We turn around and be like, God, how you could do this? And it's like, but this is what you were asking for, but you didn't know what it was you were asking for. And sometimes we put ourselves in situations where we cause our own downfall. We are responsible for, we go through a negative period, and it's really just the consequences of our own actions that we're experiencing. And, sometimes we tend to blame God, and it's like, sometimes we blame God if He does it, we blame God if He doesn't do it. And it's like, just trusting, God knows what He's doing. So when you feel doubt, when you feel frustrated, when you feel the need to compare yourself to other people, remember God is a very specific and intentional God. If God is doing something for you, He means to do it. If God is not doing something for you, He means to not do it. And it all boils down to having that faith and trust that God knows what He is doing. He's not making a mistake. He's not taking too long. He's not moving too fast. He knows what He is doing. And you alluded to it before as well in terms of God has everything under control. But I think when you are somebody who likes control, you want to take it out of God's hands and put it in your own hands. It's like, God, now you're not doing a good job, let me do it. And it's like, when you really think about that, that's kind of a silly thing to do, because it's like, you really think you're going to do a better job than God. And again, it really boils down to faith and trust, But coming out of that, I want to hear your practical experience, because I know you probably have a good bit. So I want to ask, in what ways then has God used a waiting season in your life to shape your character or to deepen your faith?
Great. I feel like right now I'm in a waiting season. But I think right now the testimony isn't complete, so I'll just give piece of it. I'll come back at another point and give the rest, what the Lord would have done as a result, because I'm still waiting, right? So as we know, I'm in school, and then the Lord would have sent a job for me. When He sent the job, I was so excited because wow, I'm head over heels. I've worked and done school before. So, when I was at USC. So it isn't, it's difficult, but it's doable. Sent me to the job, I'm in an environment where I'm thinking, okay, everybody has strong morals and values, and you just project it, getting into the space and you're projecting at this point, you're having high expectations. So I got into this space, and as a Christian in this environment, even among people who claim to be other Christians, I'm seeing where a lot of things are happening that shouldn't be happening. The typical government worker type of thing. And I'm saying to myself, Lord, this can't be the place you want me to be in. You can't put me somewhere where I'm seeing wrong things happening. I can't do anything about it, and I just need to accept it. Like, what are you doing? Like, it's not, in one sense, I just can't do it. It just goes against everything that I'm standing for. But I think even in this season, in this situation, I'm seeing where the Lord is trying to refine my character, show me strategy, and teach me patience. And also teach me not everything you see you need to make a fuss about. Not everything you hear you need to take to heart. Focus on getting your stuff done and leaving the rest up to everybody else. He's also teaching me to stand in the midst of persecution. Because sometimes you're in a space and you're seeing everybody's doing the wrong thing and they trying to get you roped into doing it too. So you'd have something, they can blackmail you in some way or the other. And when you don't do it, they try to antagonize your character. They try to, isolate you. They do all sorts of things to just get under your skin, leave you out of things, ill speak you, spread rumors about you, and all these other things. And I think for me, I have learned, so I'm still learning to stand, because at one point in my life, I was a people pleaser. Right? I struggled with being a people pleaser. I see the way that was to my demise, because sometimes you're going against your values and your morals, what the Lord has told you to do, because you're trying to please somebody else. But in the long run, you're destroying yourself. And then you're destroying the relationship that you have with God. So I think even in this season as well, I'm seeing where I'm waiting on the Lord's intervention, divine intervention. I mean, I've seen even in these situations where um people try to do me some of all sorts of things. I've never experienced anything in my life. So it's kind of exciting, and it's exciting in the sense of it's the first time. But at the same time, it's like, Lord, what do I do about these things? What do I do? But I think he has taught me, is teaching me to depend on him as the source of my strength, because sometimes I was looking for higher ups to, kind of rescue me. Um, provide opportunities and stuff like that. And the Lord is saying, the Lord has told me, well, I've put you here, you just have to wait on me. So this season where I'm waiting for him to intervene, well, finish what he started, but also learning that, practically at this point, he's teaching me to be patient and stand for what is right, regardless of how you're treated as a result of that. So I'm learning to just build that resilience. Even when the fight comes, to still stand and ask the Lord for that strength daily, to keep standing in the midst of the trial, in the midst of the persecution, in the midst of, and I'm even seeing it myself too, I am a recovered people pleaser. So I'm learning to know where it's okay not to be liked when you're standing for what the Lord has asked you to stand for. It's okay to not be favored by the majority, because favor comes from God. He's the one to favor you. And if you have to compromise your values and your morals to gain favor with man, then you're doing something wrong. You are doing something wrong. So in this waiting season, even showing a practical experience, giving a practical experience, the Lord is teaching me humility, he's teaching me patience, he's teaching me to depend on him as the source of my strength. He's teaching me to not care too much about what people think about me, because I know I'm doing his will. And he's teaching me also that he's the one to advocate for me, because some of the things I've seen, even in that environment, where what persons try to do to me, I've seen Lord counteract it. He's like, let me shine. So the prayer, the fasting, and the cry works, because he's just showing up in a way that is bigger than what I even anticipated it. First experience, alas, then it's kind of like, Lord, why are you putting me through this? I just want a normal life. Or why can't I have a normal work life like everybody else? What normal looks like, again, normal is subjective, but normal in the sense of peace, just something calm, something not too riley and hostile. But I know that he has placed me there for this season to teach me patience, teach me waiting, to teach me to even strengthen my faith. I'm telling you, those situations brought me to my knees. So he realizes as well too, these things would bring me closer to him, because I need to rely on him as my strength, as my source. And as you rightfully said, sometimes he puts us in situations we don't understand why, but he sees the end goal is your salvation. The end goal is him getting glory and honor for what he's doing in your life. So nobody can take credit for the things that God has done or is continuing to do. But he's the one to take credit. And I'm just so thankful that when the enemy comes in like a flood, the Lord has continued to raise a standard against him. There's a part two to this testimony. We will reconvene at that at a later time when we get us to pay again. But as we continue, I want to ask you, Candice, as I would have shared in terms of, practical experience with God, God working in that situation. I'm sure you would have you have a personal experience in your life too that you would like to share about. So how do you think for the viewers out there who are going through things, that transition, with being a newlywed, apartments, the corporate world, and even balancing, how do you think, you have been able to gracefully wait on God and also utilize the various techniques in your personal life?
Yeah, so having to wait, I do think, and I agree with what you said in terms of God knows what he's doing and he sends situations and he allows certain things to happen for us to grow. And for me personally, I shared this when I did a presentation in church about 2 or 3 Sunday evenings ago. In terms of my husband and I were actually supposed to get married in 2024. Supposed to, as in that was the plan. At the end of 2024 to get married, because at that point in time we would have been courting for 5 years. And so in my mind, it makes sense. The dates line up, the numbers sound right, the timing was right for me. And something happened at the beginning of 2024 where our relationship hit a rough patch where I was like, okay, not only is it not looking like we're not going to get married at the end of 2024, it kind of looking like we're not going to get married at all. So then now I was I'm glad that you're recovering people pleaser, but I'm not yet there. So I was still at the point. So during counseling sessions, I'll be thinking about so many different things, thinking about like, okay, I teach a class in church. What is the class in church gonna think if certain things happen? Was my family gonna think? Was the church gonna think? I was thinking about everybody else but myself and my now husband and God and these sorts of things. So, but having had to wait a little less than a year again, and having to go through that experience of thinking, okay, what is my life gonna look like if we're not gonna get married when I thought we were, or maybe we not get married at all. And I, coming out of that experience, have realized that I think, and this comes back to what I was saying before, God allows certain things to happen to us for as a wake-up call for us ourselves. And I realized that that rough patch that we went through, that waiting period that we had to go through, was for us both to get a firm grip on the reality that we are not each other's first priority. God is our first priority, individually and collectively. And to get to a point where you would realize then, and I was put in a situation where I was like, okay, kind of similar to Abraham. If I had to give up my now husband for God, would I be willing to do that? And I think so many times, especially in the honeymoon phase of you get engaged, you want to get married and these sorts of things, you're in a period where it's just like your partner is your whole world. And it's like, regardless of what season you are in, God is first priority. And I think God allowed us to go through that waiting period for both of us to get a grip on reality in terms of, if God is not first before you get married, after you get married, it's going to be even more difficult to put him back first. So it's like being able to realize, okay, yes, as much as we love each other, we don't know what love is outside of God. And so for us to even be able to love each other effectively, you need to have that love from God, because God is love. And so having to put him first. So sometimes God, I truly believe then, if we did get married according to my plan or our plan of at the end of 2024, I think the marriage it's only been a couple of months, but I don't think it would have been as strong and solid as it is now. And I think God allows certain things to happen, again, because he knows what is best. He knows what is the better timing. He knows you are not ready for what you're asking for yet. And as much as you want this, and God is saying, I understand that you want this, you want it really bad, but I'm telling you, you're not ready for it. And if I give it to you now, you're going to just turn back and say, God, why did you allow this to happen? And it's like, just, sit back and trust, God knows what he is doing. And his timing is always perfect. And it's easier said than done. I understand that. A lot of what we said today, it sounds really nice in theory, but a viewer listening might say it's easy to say, but it's not so easy to do. And, God gives us the strength and God gives us the faith. And, this is where I think a community is important. Hearing the testimonies of others and just being reminded that you are not going through this by yourself. Every single person has something that they're asking for, that they've been waiting for. Some people have been waiting for months, some people have been waiting for years, some people have been waiting their entire life. And unfortunately, sometimes God does things that God answers your prayers after you have passed on. I've heard about so many parents who pray for their children to come back to church, and they only came back to church after they have passed on. So you don't even get to see more or less that thing that you've been praying for, but just leave it in God's hands and trust that he knows what he is doing, And so, from that then, we spoke earlier about wanting to take matters into your own hands and thinking, okay, Abraham and Sarah was an example of, okay, Lord, God seems to be waiting a bit too long. I feel like there's something I could do. And then there's the flip side of the coin where, all right, I'm leaving this in God's hands. I'm just going to sit and wait and maybe not do anything. So then, how could we discern the difference between actively waiting on God and just passively doing nothing then?
That's a great question. A great question. I think the differentiation that I would make in my personal life with actively waiting on God and actually, well, making a step, because faith without works is dead, and actually sitting back and allowing him to work, is communicating with him. And I always think about this story with, Abraham. Yeah, I think it's Abraham. Yeah, who carried his son carried his son to be sacrificed. Yeah. He was so in tune with with God that he knew God's voice. He knew when God was telling him, pick up yourself and start to walk. And he knew when God was saying to sit down and be still. I think in some instances that I've experienced in my life, you need to take a step. You don't send out the application for school. You can't say, well, Lord, is it your will for me to pursue this degree program? And you don't apply. In the application and then the acceptance or even the decline, you would see, okay, where are you standing with what I'm asking you to? Lord, I need an employment. You don't send out applications, you most likely will not get a call. Everything that I've signed up for the calls that I've gotten in my lifetime are things I would have signed up for in the past. That somehow, how long ago I signed up for it, the Lord see now when I'm asking him, Lord, I need some money. The person called, after how long that would have been. So I think in some instances when we're waiting, you need to make a step. Right. And I think that step comes down with knowing God's voice. Again, these are practical situations that we experience on a day-to-day basis. You can't, Lord, I want a loan. I want you to allow them to approve this loan, and you don't go to the bank and sign up for the loan. They're not going to call you for a loan 9 times out of 10. We be talking realistically here. If you don't apply for the loan. So I think there's some things you need to, Lord, I want to travel. I wanna travel abroad. You need a visa to go there. You don't gonna go and apply for the visa. Lord, I pray, Lord, in faith that you help me get through this. Based on the outcome of this will be a sign, depending on what you want me to do. So I think there are some things you need to have. You need to make a step. And then in stepping or moving, the Lord will show you, no, yes, go there. And I hear a pastor of mine that I love to listen to, Pastor not Jerry Flowers, Pastor Snell, W. Snell from Oakwood Church. He would usually say with a GPS, a GPS cannot tell you where to move if you don't move. If you're sitting still, as you would know, Candace, in traffic, not even in traffic, you're just home sitting down. You don't put in where you want to go in the GPS. You don't start to drive. The GPS can't even reroute or route you to go anywhere because you're just sitting down doing nothing. That's like, Lord, I want to get you're self-employed. Lord, I want to get employment. Let's just say a tradesman, and you don't go out and actively look for jobs. How do you think you're really going to get called? Lord, I want to pass the exam. I'm so stressed out. I have so much going on. Work is giving me a punch here. This is happening. But you don't study. That exam paper is going to come in front of you and your brain is empty because you didn't study anything. He can't bring back to your remembrance what you didn't put there for yourself. So I think in some instances, you need to make a step. And I think prayerfully making that step, but also in a practical setting, some things God works in mysterious ways too. You could get a call for some things and you didn't sign up, and those things happen because I've heard testimonies of those things happening before. But I think in some instances, you have to make a step for him to do the rest. You can't say, Lord, I want to get married, and you're not putting yourself out there. You're not making sure you're approachable. You're always leaving church early. Different things like that.
Yeah.
The husband isn't just going to fall on your lap and you're married tomorrow because you prayed today. So I think some things are practical. And I think we'll be able to differentiate based on the relationship we have with God and understanding how life kind of really works as well. So yeah.
Yeah, so we've come to, unfortunately, the end of our discussion for this morning. And just a closing thought for those of you all who are listening. Everybody's situation is different. Maybe you could relate to what Akila and I said. Maybe your situation looks a bit different, but God sees and knows everything. Your situation is known by God. He is working things out. We just need to trust his timing is perfect. And, like Isaiah 60:22 says, when the time is right, the Lord will make it happen. So thank you for joining us this morning. Of course, we're going to look at the ads before we wrap up. Feel free to join us. We are on every Sunday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. And, thank you again. Continue to share the link, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Okay, bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Every thread holds a memory, every color a promise. At Baker's Flags and Emblems, we understand what these symbols mean. We craft each piece to carry the weight of our history, the brilliance of our future. From the spirit that forged us to the vibrant tapestry we are today, our flag witnesses it all. Carry our story proudly. Choose Baker's Flags and Emblems. Visit us today.
JD Furniture Store, we believe the things you choose for your home should last your family years to come. Whether it's a cozy furniture for your bedroom, living room, or kitchen appliances, we've got it all. Obsess over your home's comfort, and we'll obsess to ensure it's affordable with zero-down options and home by you in no time. Visit JD Furniture, showroom in Arima, or www.jdfurniturestore.com to buy and apply today. Open weekdays only. Call or WhatsApp 219-3000 today.
For 62 years, the Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventists has been writing stories of recovery, resilience, and renewal. Here, healing isn't just about medicine. It is about finding peace in a comfortable environment, strength in our state-of-the-art facilities, and hope in every interaction. At the Community Hospital, we are more than your healthcare providers. We are your neighbors, your friends, your family in healing. Your journey to wellness begins with a single call. Let's write your story of healing together.
For all your healthcare needs, give us a call at 622-1191 or visit our website, thecommunityhospital.org, to make an appointment today.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
Where good private health care is affordable.
And we are back. We are here